Hi, everyone. Welcome back. It's Erin. As usual, I work in the children's and adult fiction department, and my pronouns are she, her. And we have a fantastic special guest today, my friend, Marc Samuels. Do you want to let us know a little bit about yourself? Introduce yourself to our listeners.
Hey, what's going on? I'm glad to be on the show. So thank you for having me.
Our pleasure.
Oh, no problem. My name is Marc Samuels. My pronouns are he, him, and I am a podcaster and filmmaker.
Amazing.
So cool. Yeah, thanks so much for coming on. I'm Ashlyn, she, they. I still work in community engagement.
I'm Kate, she, her, and I still work at the Brooklyn branch.
And I'm Kylie, also pronouns she, her, and I also still work at the Roslyn branch.
Brilliant.
So we are really excited. This is our fourth episode, but it's our first episode with a special guest. And we are so excited to have you here, Marc. It's really great to have you on. So Shelby's not here today, but that's all right. Yeah, so we wanted to talk to you, Marc, about your work in the community. So if you wanted to tell us a bit about that.
Yeah, and also we kind of wanted to play off of the library. And so if you listen to our last episode, we talked about some really amazing Black authors that you guys can read because, as you all know, it's February and we love to celebrate, obviously Black History Month every month, but especially in February. So we kind of wanted to talk a little bit about what the library does for diversity and like what we're trying to do in our community, and then maybe get, a community person to tell us what you're looking for. So some of the things that we've done, we obviously put out a Black Lives Matter statement during all the craziness that was going on this year, and I can't speak for everyone else on the screen, but I know that was incredibly important for me to hear that from my library and from my community. And Kylie, hi Kylie.
Hello.
Did a diversity audit of our entire collection last year.
Wow.
Do you want to maybe tell us a little bit about that?
Sure, yeah. So last year, one of my biggest projects when I was an intern at the library was to do a diversity audit. So I went through the 100 most recent collection acquisitions at the library in, I think, 8 different categories. I did adult fiction, children's fiction, so picture books and novels, children's graphic novels, teen books, teen graphic novels, and children's nonfiction. I think that's 7. And basically I went through and looked at who the authors were and how they identify themselves, and also the characters, or in the case of nonfiction, just what pictures were used. So I looked at if the biggest example was in picture books, if the characters were non-human, so there were a lot of animals, a lot of just like kind of shapes as well. Was a very popular one. Characters,
there's a lot of shapes,
like triangles and circles. Or in the case of human characters, I looked at what their race was, if the race was something that was provided by the author in context, or if that was something that was kind of left up to the interpretation of the reader. Gender, also looked at if there was any sort of LGBTQ representation in those. So that was probably like 6 months of searching through as many books as I possibly could find at the library to see how well we were doing with representing our community. And we actually were doing pretty good, which is
that sounds
really nice to see. Yeah, it was a really good project.
It was a great report too.
Oh, it was the best. It takes a library nerd to be like, ooh, stats.
Statistics.
No, but I think it's important that you put that out there, because the truth is a lot of people don't know exactly what goes on in the everyday inner workings of a library. And 6 months of literally just going through every painful description of every single character in every book, that is an insane amount of work. And I love the fact that you guys are dedicated to putting that out there to make sure that, there is that much diversity within your own local library for everybody else's consumption. That's really cool.
Yeah. Well, we're ultimately responsible for collection development, which is a fancy word for who buys books and who puts them on the shelf. library terms, but we're also under no illusion that that's enough, right? Like we all know that there's no special list that we just sort of like check off and be like, cool, we did these things, we're good. Like representation and diversity audits and all of that kind of stuff is like an ongoing battle 24/7. And for us, we can control what's in the collection, but there are other things out of our control. So do you have any, I guess, insight as somebody who's a really important member of the community and someone who's really active in the Black community, like what kind of support you would want from your local library, community hubs, that kind of thing?
Well, absolutely. I kind of always tend to forget whenever we do the introduction blurbs. I have been working in the community as a child and youth worker for the last 10 years, and I kind of now just forget to mention that. But one of the great things about working in the community, I've worked in Scarborough, Toronto, which is a subsect of Toronto, Ontario, for those who are listening outside of Whitby. I don't know. The point is, in Scarborough, there is a wide array of different communities within that section. And a lot of the places that I've worked in are predominantly Black children, Afro-Caribbean children. And we get a lot of different types of kids as well, but mainly a lot of Black kids, especially in our after-school programs. And one of the biggest pushes that they usually try to bring into programming is getting them to read. Now, especially with young boys, I find that the stigma is that boys don't read. That's not true. Boys
no,
read.
It's not true at all. But you're right. We battle it too.
And because a lot of times they don't see themselves in fiction or in literature, it kind of just breezes past them. It's really, really, really difficult to get somebody, especially a young person, to be interested in something that doesn't really involve them or doesn't really share any of their experiences,
Yeah.
And that is one of the biggest reasons why I have worked really hard to try to scour through every single library. I used to like cart out libraries, books in the library by the wagon load and just bring
You're one of us.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Safe space.
It's necessary for programs like this so that I know exactly what it is that I'm looking for. One thing that I have been very happy with, it's something I like talking about because if you look at like the internet forums and in terms of like graphic novels, comic books, things like that, superheroes, kids love superheroes. And one thing that I constantly hear whenever I'm on the internet is that we don't understand who these diversity characters are for. And I'm always there to be like, yo, I know who
Miles Morales, Falcon, new
Miles
Captain
Morales,
America.
Falcon, Kamala Khan, even Spider-Gwen. Those are some of the most popular characters in fiction right now with the younger demographics. And there's a huge reason why. The demographics that were around in the 1960s just don't really make sense to our world right now. And our world is big and diverse and has lots of pronouns and lots of races and lots of different people. And the fact is that they're making characters for these kids so that they can feel like they identify with them is an amazing change. And I love the fact that we're embracing that change.
Yeah. You make such a really good point because, like, ladies, I know, again, I'm just going to mention, like, I am biracial. My mom's Black, my dad's white, but I pass very white. So, last week we all kind of acknowledged our privilege when talking about these books, but we also talked about the importance, some of the ones we read, is reading positive stories about Black characters. And while the history is incredibly important to read and remember that it really wasn't very long ago that this was happening, it's so nice to read just a story about them finding love or about their family or going on an adventure where it doesn't always have to have a negative connotation to it. So
and sorry to jump in.
Such a good point.
One of the amazing things about a character like Miles Morales, and I'm going to use him as an example because there's like tons of his books in the libraries. One of the coolest things that I had the experience of reading through these books with these like young 12 to 14-year-old boys is I personally did not grow up with any stories, literature, film, any version of a coming of age tale of a young Black male that did not involve drugs, that did not involve gangs, and did not involve some sort of like hood life. And to be honest, I grew up with two parents, and my father is a preacher, and I did not relate. You know, so
no, we grew up in Pickering. It was pretty
and we
tame.
grew up in Pickering. You know?
Yeah.
I forgot about that, but yeah. Like,
Listeners, in case you didn't know, Mark and I went to high school together. So
shout out to
go
Pickering.
Pumas.
But the fact that we have these stories now where I can just sit there and throw on, you know, Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse, and it's just a story about a young Afro-Latino boy who's just growing up in a neighborhood with superpowers. That's cool. That's amazing.
And his dad's a cop.
And his dad's a cop.
And his dad's
not a
like
bad cop. And it
yeah.
no
yeah, it's just a good story.
Yeah. But yeah, so outside of, you know, I don't like calling it fluff because, you know, literature is literature, but
no, fluff exists. We all love it.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, we talked about John Green earlier. It's fine. Outside of that, I do like hitting them with the more meatier information driven books, because it's not enough to just have characters that represent us. We also have to know about our history. And that doesn't just go for Black kids. You know, one of the first things that I make sure to mention every single year when I'm in program with these kids is that Black History Month is not necessarily for Black people, you know?
Yeah.
It's good. It's good for us to know our history and throw it into the curriculum every once in a while, even though I consider Black history just history. But the fact is that a lot of white people, especially within the suburbs, growing up in Pickering, you kind of learn that without Black history being in the curriculum, most information is kind of just downplayed or non-existent.
Yeah.
And
it's not even in the curriculum enough that it should be.
Oh God, no.
That's a whole other tangent we can go on. But you're right in terms of education. Yeah.
So, I mean, I love the fact that we have a lot of different types of books now where we can talk about varying different subjects within the Black community, within Black history, and what is important to Black communities. And it's still good enough so that like non-Black people can read it and be educated and be a part of the conversation, because that is just as important. You know, we're trying to build young allies from the ground up, and having access to that literature, having access to that information is important for everybody.
No, you're so right. And like I don't know if you ladies have noticed this either, but I know working in the children's department, so for instance, like the YA genre, I think is doing an amazing job in terms of Black literature.
Yeah.
Like, you know, they're killing it, right? To the point that like you've got main characters, you've got love interests, whatever, but you've also got, you know, like the book Dear Martin, you've got everything, like all of those. What's the one, her name's Star?
Oh, The Hate You Give.
Oh, The Hate You Give.
And On the Come
I
Up.
was just about to say, shout out to Angie Thomas, man.
Yeah.
Absolutely killing it.
But where I do notice as a children's librarian as well, there's a huge disparity in like younger literature for like really little kids. But there are some now I'm noticing, like there's a really great picture book like for young kids called Henry's Freedom Box.
Wow.
Which is a beautiful story. And there's a Underground Railroad one for junior fiction called Elijah of Buxton.
Oh wow.
So good. Yeah.
That's like a really good one as well. But you're right, it's hard because we try to do our best. We like to think of ourselves as allies, and we try to do our best with populating the library's materials with things that people need to read. But on the flip side, it's really hard when that kind of stuff, there's not a lot of it.
Mm-hmm. It's a big publishing problem. Like and there was a study that I read about, I can't remember who did it, but they were looking at characters in children's books, and it was showing that like you're more likely to find an animal as a main character in like a picture book than you are to find like a kid of color.
Oh yeah.
And that's just messed up.
That checks out. I mean, I have a 2-year-old nephew, and we go to the library quite frequently before, you know, pandemic. Yeah. And that was kind of an issue because my sister would, you know, like, hey, you know, when you're bringing some books home, you know, make sure he sees himself in the book, which I think is a genuinely fair request. And why I'd be digging in that children's section for hours. And
Yeah.
long time to find like, you know, 1 or 2 books, where usually I'll just like grab a stack and a handful and not really think about it. But you're right. Finding an animal is a lot easier in a lot of cases. And I think that's something that has to change.
I'm running the 1,000 Books Before Kindergarten program at the library, which as of recording this has just launched. And I have a list that's going to be going up on Read Squared, which is the platform that we have the program on. And I made a list of Black joy in picture books for Black History Month. And it was hard to find some titles. Like, it was hard, and we didn't have all of them in our collection. I found some good ones in French and English. I wanted to have an equal number on both sides, but it was like, I needed to dig and I needed to do some research. I was on Goodreads looking at lists. I was, you know, doing some Googling and then going to our catalog. And it's like, it's really something that I think it is a publishing issue.
So I can speak to that because I have spent, you know, the last 4-5 years, however long I've reached the library. They all blend. I will come across something, and if I notice immediately, like just by the cover, that I notice there's representation in it, because I usually do Black History Month displays, like in my department, I keep a list. And I have a running list of like maybe 120 to 150 kids' books, just picture books. But here's the kicker that I also think is probably a publishing thing. So for listeners who don't know, when we get material into the library, it comes with a fancy thing called a MARC record, which is literally just sort of the classification of the book. And when it gets processed in the back, it gets added almost tags, like Instagram tags, like you guys see. So our catalog, like our website, is set up so if you type in, you know, curly hair or something, I'm just saying that.
No particular reason.
No, but it's just random. You'll get a tag with all, you'll get a list with all the books that have been tagged with curly hair. But I also find like an inconsistency with the tags when it comes to culturally diverse books. And I don't think that people are like actively leaving them out. I just think, unfortunately, it's an oversight, because I'm finding all of these titles that aren't popping up in my general searches.
Of those like subject headings, or if you want to think of them as like tags, are assigned by the Library of Congress.
They are.
Yeah, but
I wasn't even aware of that. That's big.
Yeah,
so
it's
Ashlyn,
huge.
for our readers, and Mark, what is the Library of Congress?
Yeah, so the Library of Congress is, I mean, it's a library, of course, but it's also kind of the authority that kind of runs the show for libraries in North America, dare I say. So they're kind of the ones who, I guess, kind of call the shots on things like records and all that kind of thing. But I think a really, really cool thing that I want to shout out is that the current Librarian of Congress, so like the highest person in the Library of Congress, Carla Hayden, is a Black woman. And she is the first woman to be Librarian of Congress, the first Black person to be Librarian.
Oh, it's kind of crazy that 2021 and she's the first one. That's like,
Yeah.
and not even just first Black person, like first Black woman.
First woman.
That's insane.
Yeah, but it makes a really valid point. Like we're trying to do what we can to make sure that our community members feel seen and feel heard. But we have our own obstacles, you know, to overcome, and our own unconscious biases to overcome as well. So that's hopefully, I mean, I know this group, we're actively trying to do that, and hopefully we can speak for the library as well, that we make it a welcoming place.
Absolutely. And I think that, you know, without undercutting what the library is working to do, but this is also on an infrastructure level as well. You know, just straight up hiring more diverse people means that there's more diverse people behind the scenes, which means that they'll, you know, maybe be a little more privy to these inconsistencies when labeling books. That's just kind of how things work. So I think that I think that we still need a lot more picture books personally, even if there are some that are lost in the shuffle. Like we could definitely we could definitely do a little more.
That we have too are really old, like they were published in like the 80s and the 90s, and they look kind of grubby, and we just need we need updated stuff that the kids are gonna want to, like, they see the cover and they pull it. Like,
Definitely.
the don't judge a book by its cover does not apply to children.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I remember getting a bunch of books donated to our program in West Scarborough, and the books that they gave us were like, the best way I could possibly explain it is that it would have been offensive by 90s standards. I was like, oh, they really got them with like the big puffy jackets and do-rags.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Okay.
Oh, yeah. We're not all high and mighty. We're definitely a little bit biased, but, we learn in library school that, the Freedom of Information Act and access to information is hands down the most important thing for our society. And that's why your libraries are free. And that's why they're available to everyone. And that's why we try to make them safe spaces. But it would be really nice if, like, we could get on the level of like good Black stories for everything, right?
Agreed.
We'll get there, hopefully one day.
Hopefully we do.
We got some time.
I was going to mention, we kind of went off in a different direction, but
we did.
I just wanted to bring it back to books. There was one YA that I came across that was really cool because it is also nonfiction, but it's written almost like a YA. And I found it at the Pickering Public Library, and I have been using it almost every year with the kids since. It is just called X, and it is obviously a story of Malcolm X, who is a personal hero of mine. And it's actually written by his daughter, whose name I'm definitely going to butcher, but Ilyasa Shabazz. And the way that she writes the story, it really could be just a fiction YA that is based on history. Like, it's written that well. And I just love using it because we get to take passages from it. I have the kids like read it around, and immediately we're in conversations about like race relations in, the 1940s versus now, how much has changed. Scarily not that much, we have conversations about colorism. A lot of people don't know about Malcolm X, that his mother was actually, Aaron, like you, biracial in passing. And most people were not aware of that until her kids would like come into her workplace, and it got her fired from work several different times.
Yeah.
So, conversations like these are important, especially with things like colorism being kind of a prominent issue right now. And also just the fact that, in the last, 5-6 years, we've kind of tailspun back to like some version of a civil war. And I don't know how that happened, but I feel like we should need to talk about it with kids because that's important now.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's great. Like, if we can, having a female Black Librarian of Congress is huge. Because I know we were talking about the Library of Congress, how important it is to our industry, and how marginalized it still can be in some ways. And it's not a bad thing. Like, everybody is working to better themselves, right? Like, we can't expect to snap our fingers and everything be perfect. So we're not at all complaining about anything. We're just sort of like looking at the benefit of having someone in that kind of position and the positive change that they can make.
Absolutely.
But yeah, we need better representation, better classifications, all those things. And hopefully we're working in the step in the right direction, and that community members will feel safe in our space and feel represented. And I know it's definitely not the same thing, but I really identified with you when you said like you never had something on the media that you could look up to as a kid and see yourself. And I identified with that as a mixed kid too, because closest I got was Bella's like, brown hair, loves books, sold. But wasn't. Right. I did my best. But again, and I know, Disney's kind of, they're doing it. They're bringing some stuff out. They've got a Filipino princess soon, and we've got Tiana, and they're amazing. Kind of trying to fill those gaps. But it wasn't until I came across a book by Taye Diggs, actually, the actor. It's called Mixed Me.
Yeah.
I got so excited, and I was like, it's a book for mixed kids. Like, this is great, because it, not nearly can't even compare the experiences of mixed kids to that of the Black community. But when we're talking about just representation and seeing yourself, yeah, we don't either. So, you know, there's some steps in the right direction.
Well, I'm saying, like, the fact that we're actually making steps in those directions is a huge positive. And one thing that I always want to reference, something that I reference on the podcast a lot, is, you know, even if I get into full rant mode, we always have to keep in mind that it's not complaining, it's improvement. Yeah. Everything can always be improved. And if somebody is upset about things being improved, then I don't know, maybe you're stuck in the past. Maybe that's not, maybe you have to check within yourself and figure out why it is that you don't want improvement on society. You know, talking about changes that could be made within the library is always a good thing. We should always be striving for something a little bit better for everybody.
Agreed. Definitely. Awesome. Well, and Mark, you were saying you had some reading material. You were going to recommend a few books to us. So I can put that on a list and put it on our website. Listeners, in case you were wondering, Mark got very excited and sent me approximately 15 titles.
I'm so sorry, y'all.
No, never apologize. I will make sure all of those get put onto a list on our website. But if you wanted to introduce a few now, that would be amazing.
Okay, so I was trying to decide which ones make the most sense. And as being somebody who is around kids a lot, and especially young people a lot, I always try to keep in mind what it is that would make a good conversation for them, something that would get them excited about the subject matter. And so I cheated a little bit. I had a couple of things that also have like TV and film adaptations, which, all right, just making sure, because I know you guys read a lot. You guys, I don't know.
We love those.
TV is valid.
We
talk about
TV too.
Yeah. Okay. We talk about Bridgerton all the time. It's fine.
I was just going to say Bridgerton.
The diversity in Bridgerton. Anyway. We won't go there, but it's
Netflix,
great.
they did something well.
Shonda Rhimes is a queen.
Oh, Shonda Rhimes,
man. All right, well, in terms of adaptations, we have, the first thing that I came up with was one of a book that I absolutely fell in love with, and it was Ta-Nehisi Coates' Between the World and Me. It is just gorgeously written. It's written almost like a letter to his son about his experiences and what he feels like, you know, his son can take away from those experiences, and how he can better his own life based on, you know, a lot of the problems that we were talking about earlier, you know, the experiences growing up as a Black man and what that means in a lot of cases, because the world is, you know, kind of harsh towards Black men a lot. So I love that story. It also has an HBO Max adaptation where I believe he got like all of the celebrities on the planet to help him read like portions and selections of this book. And it's just gorgeous. So if you are looking for something like that, where you guys can, if you are looking for something like that, where you want to start a conversation with some of your kids or nephews or just kids within your community, I think this is a really great place to start. And yeah, show them the show while you're doing it. I think that kids work really well when they have a visual representation as well. The other one that I have is actually a book that I read after, I actually went and bought it after I saw the TV series, and it is Little Fires Everywhere. I don't know if y'all...
One of my book club books.
Yeah. Okay, that's amazing.
I'm looking for my copy. It's up there. Can't reach it.
Man, the TV show had me hooked. Me and my partner literally could not stop watching this show. Like, it was just edge of your seat. Why can't I think of words? Sorry. Just edge of your seat, you know, drama going all over the place, and a really, really, really important story, in my opinion, because when a lot of people have conversations about racism and race relations, one thing that I always notice is, well, a couple of things that I notice is that, one, they always tend to be in the very, very far past. You know what I mean? Very distant past, you know, almost like racism is this like thing. It was an old American invention, you know, they shoot it in black and white, and, you know, like Martin Luther King was murdered, you know, like when my mom was born. This wasn't a long time.
Yeah.
You know,
Mm-hmm.
so Little Fires Everywhere completely avoids that. The entire series and the entire book is set within the 90s, you know, which, you know, gives me joy on two levels, because on the one level, it's like, yeah, this is something that has not really gone anywhere. And two, I get to be overloaded with 90s nostalgia, which is fantastic. This is actually the only book that I've suggested that is not written by a Black person, but I actually think that it's just as important, and the story is just fantastic. So I'm not going to spoil nothing, but people should check it out. And I think the last one is Tony Adeyemi.
Children of Blood and Bone.
Come on.
Yes, it's so good.
This is just the most fantastic thing I have ever read. I am not a huge fan of reading fiction. So when, you know, this was suggested to me as a kind of like fantasy series, I kind of think of it more like Afrofuturism, but like when it was suggested to me, I was like, all right, I'll check it out. And then like 300 pages later, I was like, oh damn, I'm really in this. I'm like, and the fact that Disney just acquired it, it's going to have an adaptation, is just the greatest thing ever. And yeah, I am super looking forward to seeing what they do with it.
Have you read the sequel yet?
No.
There's a sequel.
There's a
I haven't
sequel.
started it yet, but there's a second one.
Okay.
I think it's a trilogy.
I'm sorry, what?
I think it's a trilogy, but only the first 2 books are out.
There's gonna my entire
there's gonna be a third book.
I'm not gonna get anything done.
No.
So here's the thing: podcast is gonna happen like next 2 months from now.
So, team, since he loves YA fantasy, should we invite him to the club?
Yes.
I mean,
yes.
That's kind of all we read.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
Awesome. Okay, well, my next up read is Boyfriend Material by Alexis Hall. I'm very excited because it's got a fake boyfriend trope. It's got British guys, and it checks all my boxes.
It's really good.
I'm really excited.
This looks like something I would find on like anyone in children and adult fiction's desk, but I'm so here for it. Like, it just makes sense.
Even
Look
the
at
title,
that.
man, I'm just like, this.
I'm so excited.
This looks like a red, white, and royal blue.
Does this like follow the same like YA trope where they have to have like 2 guys who she's fighting, you know, or fighting?
No,
for her
there's
attention?
no she in this book. That's the beauty of it.
What?
Because we are diverse across all boards.
Oh Lord!
In this group, not just with race, but with just, you know, we love.
That
people.
is fantastic. That is.
We
I'm
love
on
people.
board for it.
Okay, you can. When I finish it, I'll just send it in the courier box for you. It's fine.
I will say,
yeah, we love people and good stories. That's it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts to it. Yes, and I really want red, white, and royal blue vibes.
next reading, Something to Talk About by
Hold.
Meryl Wilsner. And this one is about a female celebrity and her female assistant who they get photographed by the paparazzi laughing over something together, and they're like, "Ooh, look, relationship." And basically, I'm not 100% sure. I haven't started reading it yet, but I'm pretty sure it's fake dating as well.
Yes, favorite trope.
And it's just like them trying to be like, do we do this, or is this going to ruin our careers? But then, you know, it's a romance, so clearly love happens.
Yeah.
So
we love love here too.
We love love. But, you know, just putting that out there, I do have an assistant for my show, and no, don't date your assistants. That's don't do that.
That's just probably really good professional.
It's good for fiction.
Yes, yeah.
Good rule of thumb.
Only in fiction. Only in fiction.
Also, speaking of female romances, my next book is That Could Be Enough by Alyssa Cole. It is the love story. It's a 19th century love story between Eliza Hamilton's maid and a dressmaker in New York City.
At the front door.
So excited. I'm so excited about it. It's a short story. It's part of, if listeners, if you want to read it, we have it at the library. It's part of, it's an ebook called Hamilton's Battalion. And it's like 3 almost fan fiction historical romances about the revolutionary era.
I'm obsessed with
So these
this.
guys saw Hamilton the musical and just started going. Like
There are
did.
so many Hamilton-inspired YA novels now.
They're like Wattpad.
It's literally called Alexander and Eliza. I have it on my shelf. I have not read it
man.
yet, but like there are so many.
I wasn't aware this was a thing. I am now going to have to search this.
People went crazy.
Wow.
Ashlyn, what are you reading next?
Oh my gosh. Next.
Did you not get the memo, by the way? We did not coordinate this whole thing.
Oh.
So if you ruin it, we're gonna be sad.
No, don't worry. I am not ruining it. Okay, so listeners, you've already heard about this book, Clap When You Land, by Elizabeth Acevedo. I'm partway through it. It is incredible. There's also a female-female relationship. And it's like on the sidelines. Yeah, so we're doing it. Yeah, but it's a really good book. Kate's already talked about it in our first episode, I think, but yeah. It's amazing.
Really?
And
So
it's like
good.
the verse is so cool. And just like, I don't know if anyone's interested in what the pages look like.
I am.
Because it's like,
kind of like
it's in
poetry, right?
verse. Yeah, exactly.
That's so cool.
So it's definitely a quicker read, but it's also really cool because some of the ways that like the author spaces out the words, you know, like letters and stuff, it's like, oh my gosh, like there's even more levels to it of like, oh, what does this mean? And then there was one page yesterday I was like reading like this way, like left to right, and then like up and down and up and down, and I was like, I don't know how you're supposed to read this, but it's really cool.
Yeah.
Kate knows. Kate's nodding.
Yeah.
Amazing.
It's really cool.
Before we go, I want to give a quick shout out. I know we've mentioned them before, but we have our library bundle service listeners. So if you go to our website, I believe it's one of the banners at the top, but I have added in because we usually do like seasonal options because you pick up the type of books that you want to read. It's for kids and adults. I have added a Black History Month option. So that whoever does our bundles, which is, I know I do them, so does Kate, so does Kylie. So we will pick out some really great Black History Month reads for you or your child. There's also an I Read Canadian option in there, which is another thing we celebrate in February. But I just wanted to say thank you, Marc, for coming on and chatting with us.
Thank you for having me on.
Thank you so much, Marc.
This is so much fun.
And thank you, listeners. Don't forget to check us out on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, all the things.
All the social media.
In a couple of weeks. All the social media.
Everywhere. They're everywhere.
Yeah. Bye, friends.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Take care, y'all.